One of the questions people come to me and ask me is, how much do I need to retire? What is your magic number and how do we get there? Right? So the first thing you need to ask yourself is, well, how much will you need to fund your lifestyle at retirement? And every single person is different. Some people like to travel. Some people are modest and are happy to stay at home. Some people want to go overseas. Some people are just happy to go to camper van around their state or Australia. So it's really difficult for me to answer that question. It really needs to be something that you need to be comfortable with yourself. But what I do want to show you as a numeric example is, don't sell yourself short, and I think too many people do. One thing that I think has changed over the last 15 years is people now realise relying on the age pension isn't the way to go. It's only $25,000-ish a year, and we have to be 67 to get it, which means we have no control over our destiny. So if our magic number is $1 million, we then have to ask ourselves, how do we get there to $1 million? And some of you might think, well, I'm never going to get to $1 million. It really depends on your age and what you're doing. If you're unemployed and you're not intending to work, yeah, it might be difficult. But if you're working, don't sell yourself short, right? So one thing we want to do is, let's use this as example that we're 45 years of age, and we've determined that we are happy at this point in time to work until we're 60. So 60 is our retirement age, and we've figured out that we've got we want $1 million. But I think we need to do a bit more science behind that $1 million. Right? Let's say instead of $1 million, we're going to work it back, and you want to earn $60,000 a year to fund your lifestyle. That is our magic number. So now the question is, how do we get there? So the rule of thumb is $1 million at retirement isn't going to be earning us 10%. And it's all because of this word here, risk. Because as we get older, as we go along this age cycle, our propensity to tolerate risk becomes less. And the whole reason for that is because the whole economy goes on a 10-year business cycle. Think about it. We're in 2020 now, got the corona issue. 2009 and 10, we had the fallout from the GFC. Every 10 years, we go through this boom and bust cycle, approximately. So therefore, if we get to 45, we can be high growth, because we've still got 15 years to go through this business cycle, and if we're in a trough, we've still got time to get to another peak to make our money back. If we become 55 and we want to retire at 60, we've only got 5 years left in this business cycle. We're reducing our time to recoup any potential losses. So therefore, we might not be high growth anymore. We might be looking at a balanced fund, which is a combination of cash versus investments. And that balance might be 40 to 50% to 50% there. And then as we go to 60 and approach 60, we might even become conservative. So I read recently that Australian Super's business balance fund was tracking at 9%, for example, rate of return. Normally a conservative fund is going to give us between 4 and 6%, depending on the performance and where we are in this cycle. So therefore, when we get to retirement age and we want $60,000 a year, if we get the average of 5% return, if we target $1 million, that's only going to be $50,000. So therefore, to make $60,000 a year on average, conservatively invested, we need to raise $1.2 million to get to that magic number. So, how do we get there? Okay, so we've got super. With super, let's say we had 300,000 and a lot of people have just dropped maybe 30% and their balance is 200,000. Is it doom and gloom? No, it's not. Again, why? Because we go through a cycle. We only make a loss if we sell. If we don't sell, we don't make a loss. So unless you're worried that your whole market is going to drop and never come back, you will always recoup those falls in the market. The valuation of your portfolio will always come back, and if not grow. But let's say we're at 200,000. Now, one other point I want to make here that I forgot to mention at this point here is the other thing we need to think about is if we retire at 60 and we have 1.2 million, we're only going to earn 60,000 a year if we don't touch that balance. If we touch that balance and it decreases, well then our income is going to decrease per that rate of return as well. So that's something we need to think about. At 60, it might be an issue. When we get to 75, 80 and our lifestyle really diminishes and we become a lot more homebound and family bound, then we can probably become a little bit more frivolous with our money because it's not as important. So we need to think about if we want 60,000 and we're tapping into this, how that's going to affect us. Okay, so that's one thing to remember up there. So now we've got a super balance of 200,000. Now we know that on average, 7.2%, our super balance is going to double every 10 years. So if we've got a $200,000 balance, at 55 it's going to be 400,000. I'm going to use really easy maths. We're on 110,000, so therefore our super contributions are 10,000 a year. So over that 10-year period, we've had contributions of 100,000. So therefore we've got 500,000. And let's say there's been dividends and growth in the fund. So we're at 600,000. We've got another 5 years to go. Right, this is real paper napkin calculation, so don't hold any of this to me. We've got another 5 years to go to get to 60. So let's say conservatively, that 200,000 in 15 years is going to be 800,000. That ain't too bad. But we're still short of either $1 million or 1.2 million, or if we want a buffer, we're going to be short even if it's 1.4. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to look at alternative options. Now, you can either put all your eggs into one basket and just load up your superannuation and just pray that you don't hit one of those cycles, or you can do one of these things that I like to call, which is diversify your portfolio, which means look at multiple different options in relation to how you invest your money. And so what we're talking about here is not only super, but property. So we might have two different cycles here, right? They might catch up with each other and they might fluctuate at different times. But you might have a property market and you might have a share market. And by diversifying our portfolio and having some of our assets in property and some of our assets in super, it mitigates our risk. Because not all markets are going to change all at the same time. So what we're going to do is diversify. So let's say we add in a $400,000 property, and we're using a growth rate for property a lot more conservative than super at 3.5%. In 10 years, so at 55, that property is $600,000 in value. We've made $200,000. Now I can find property for you that won't even cost you anything to hold, or could be cash flow positive. And if it's cash flow positive, it can actually add to these figures. So then let's say in 15 years, this property is worth 800,000. It's gone through the whole cycle. We've made therefore 400,000 on this property. After tax, it might be 300,000. So now we've got 300,000 plus 800,000 in our super. We're getting close, 1.1 million. And you really haven't had to do too much different except for work and have a little bit of courage to get there. Now, if you are courageous and you get more than one property, again, you're going to be doing what I love, diversifying, buffering your risk, and also putting yourself in a position where you might have this happen more than once, which is just going to add more layers to your wealth. And if we can get to 1.6 million, we're cooking with gas for you to have a comfortable retirement.